God, the sky is falling. Nah, JK.
Oh no.
No, it's not.
I know we
I
missed.
went to my first drag show yesterday.
You went to your first drag show. That's what's up.
Nice.
Where was it at?
I went to drag brunch at Taboo, which is a local gay bar here in Philly.
We were just talking about Taboo the other day.
And it was so fun. I gave all the ones. It was so fun.
Drag show. It's
That
the
sounds
only place where cash
wonderful.
still has importance. It's at drag shows.
Seriously.
I'm waiting for
I
like
don't know
Queens
about
to
that.
have
It's
like a
pretty
QR
applicable to
code
strip
like on their.
clubs, too.
Well, yeah, but like have like a QR code like on your like stocking or
Straight up
something.
influencers are doing that now.
Really?
They're tattooing QR codes on their bodies.
Well,
That
You
that's
know
a
what
bit
I
much.
think would be rad?
Hmm.
Having like a fucking, what are they called? A square tap on you and just being like, yeah,
Oh
baby,
my
tap
God.
that card.
Oh, like the little tap reader, like get it installed like under your fucking skin.
No, you put it right where the tramp stamp is, like on the back by the booty, so they can tap it with their card.
Yes.
It reminds me of like what is it, Will and Grace with Karen, where she's like, or like Jack, he's like swiping the
Dollars per
credit
tap.
card. Yeah, she's like, what was it like? Denied, approved.
I know exactly what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
So, Scott, how's school
Oh,
been?
why is my? Sorry.
I mean, like in some ways I'm doing really well this semester,
Hmm.
but somehow like I don't know, like it's stressful because he does like I
Stressful
love my
because
professor. He's
sigh.
it's just stressful. Like my professor's great. I really like him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of his like weird religiosity thing, he's very Christian,
Mm,
but he seems very nice about it. But I don't know. I don't really trust too many, Pentecostal type, born again type Christian people.
for
But
good reason. It's
I
called
have issues.
self-preservation.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I like to trust. I don't hate anyone like that. I just have trust problems. But other than that, he's really cool. It's just that like the other day for during spring break, he scheduled a medical thing and mild, he's fine, but he needed some time to recover, more than he thought. So of course, like time went over. So like our midterm got pushed to like the Thursday, but the problem is that now we have like two like modular quizzes. They're like they're like only 10% versus like, midterm and final, which are like 20% of the grade.
Mm.
Now we have two of them on Thursday.
Uh,
And some of the material we ended up having to like teach ourselves, which I was like, not for nothing, but I'm not paying. Not that I'm paying much anyway, but I'm
what
not
am I
here
paying
to
you for, bro?
Still paying.
right. Like
I'm paying money
like
somewhere.
I'm
Yeah.
not here to teach myself. I
Yeah.
could, if I had to teach myself, you could have just given me this course for free. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's really my job to teach myself math, but
Correct.
so that part, I mean, once again, I don't blame him. Me and him had a really nice long conversation actually a couple of weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
about how like there's this push for to get extended semesters for students who need more time.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is of course, is that they keep they're quoting, they're being the powers that be in the school district, I suppose, or the education department,
Yeah.
that the current research shows that the longer the semester, the least likely it is for students to make the to get to the finish line, as he said,
Oh yeah, you don't gotta draw
which is
it
like
out.
graduation. But I said to him, and I think he was oddly very impressed by this. I said, yeah, I said, but that research, I said, let's be real here. I said, I said to him, I was like, you have a master's degree and a minor in psychology. I was like, I'm a psychology major. I said, let's be real. I said, the research most likely is done on neurotypical, mentally well people. I said, what about the populations of people that don't fit that?
Right.
I was like, the variables are too wide for you to just be like, well, generally speaking, quote unquote normal students,
Right.
don't make it to the finish line with longer semesters. And it's like, well, it's the fuck not about them.
Right. It
Fuck
isn't.
them. What about me?
Right. What about me? Indeed.
It's the title of the episode. But what about me?
Please define what your survey defines as normal. Thank you.
That's why I said quote unquote. He didn't use the word normal. He did not use
Yeah.
that word. I want that duly noted. He's a nice man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's difficult, especially like
But
when you're
school
a whole
is school.
adult
School's
in
annoying.
school. You know,
What was that? I'm sorry.
it's just like when you're like an adult and you're in school, and because sometimes I feel like in a school setting, especially like with that teacher-student dynamic, it can be very easy for the teacher to sort of infantilize sometimes like their students, whether like
Yeah.
Almost consistently and constantly.
yeah. So like, grant there are some professors that are just super cool and awesome, and they're like, yeah, like what's up? Like we're all adults here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But some are just very like, well, I'm the teacher and you're the student, and this isn't fucking kindergarten, bitch.
You can tell that some of them really got used to the ego boost that came with being a teacher and having like that appeal to authority, like posed to them constantly, and some of them really like to act like this almost preacher like mentality of I know more than you, I'm holier than thou, you better fucking listen to me, and if you don't, I'll punish you. Like if I want to think about people who've like power tripped on me the hardest in life, teachers are
Teachers.
fucking up there. Yeah.
I've said it before twice, but oddly, but one was in a philosophy of religion course, and the other was one of my anthropology courses, and both obviously electives, but I had both of these times, totally separate classes, totally different semesters, and both times I would have to have these conversations with these professors about like the history of things. I remember in we were studying about ancient Canaan, Babylonia, Mesopotamia, and
Is it
no,
Canaan or
I'm not.
Canaan?
Is
Is it Canaan or Canaan? Because I've been saying it Canaan. I just want to make sure I haven't been fucking putting my foot in my mouth the whole time.
I've always said Canaan. I don't know.
My professor pronounced it Canaan, but
Okay, cool. Thank
I
you.
mean, whatever.
Yeah.
But
What word
I don't.
are we
I think it's
talking about?
honestly at this point potato potato.
Canaanites, Canan.
It's Canaanites.
Yeah, like
Oh, see, that's
Canaanites.
so we have 3 different pronunciations.
That's how Catholic schools
please continue
pronounce
with your story.
Sorry.
And I remember she went on a whole big thing about how in like Sumeria and whatnot there was no evidence that they believed in an afterlife, and I was like, wait, what? And now I'm not like, I want to duly noted that I'm not
A historian.
Not a historian. I don't practice anything or any kind of reconstructive anything from that area, but I know enough
To know that was wrong.
that was like just historically factually wrong. I was like, they absolutely have deities of the afterlife, and of course I was a little bit more knowledgeable at the time. I don't really study I don't study as widely as I used to. I tend to stick to my interests. But she definitely didn't like me, and I wasn't rude. I wasn't like, actually, I wasn't doing that. I was just like,
actually,
I was like, well, in contradicting to that, there is this, and I
it was
wasn't
not
trying to be
received
mean.
well.
It was just, you're wrong.
I got a
And
story for that.
and then she didn't like that very much, and conveniently, even though all my papers were outstanding, I somehow managed to get a C, which I'm pretty sure there was some
I see you.
yeah, there was that was weird. Like, I mean, I can
Hmm.
mess up in a lot of courses, but I didn't mess up in that. That was pretty easy.
So I'll say this. Teachers of any stripe can do that shit when they just want to maintain the air of authority and what have you. Like, here's a really good example. I was in a first aid course. My dad's a former first responder for firefighter. He had the highest level of medical training you can have without being a doctor, or I think it's like paramedic equivalent, I want to say. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, right? But like, first responders show up before the ambulance gets there to cut people out of like car wrecks and shit. They are the first people on scene, right? So I learned a lot of life-saving medical knowledge from him that's helped in numerous instances. And the teacher was like, okay, so someone's passed out. What do you do to check for him? Do you check for information? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, no, because where do you check? I'm like, the wrist. And he's like, well, if they don't have their wrist bracelet, what then? How far do you go? Do you check here? Do you check here? And I'm like, well, no, you obviously stop afterwards. But he
Right.
just like created a contrived example to
Mhm.
say, oh, you don't have time to look for medical details to see what they're allergic to. Me knowing my dad, yes, you do. You just check the fucking wrists, and if anybody has an obvious medical bracelet, they'll wear it,
Yeah.
and they'll have a tattoo. You don't go and start looking at the fucking ankles or like looking for random shit after that.
Or like
That's
a
stupid.
wallet,
It's
you
a,
know.
it's a 1 second visual check to check their wrists to see if they have pertinent medical information. You mean to tell me that as like a first aid responder or a like first responder, you
You're not
wouldn't take
taking
a
that?
1 second visual check just to see if they come on, it was stupid, but he wanted to be like, no, you can't rely on that just to make a point to the class. You know what I mean? So like
Mhm.
if a teacher just wants to be a fucking dick about something, even when you're right, they will, you know.
I have friends that are like that. When like even when they're right, like you're agreeing with them and they're like, "No, but listen." And you're like, "I'm fucking agreeing with you." I just
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
I don't
thinking,
know.
Scott, about how you were talking about like historical inaccuracies. I've been on a historical inaccuracy binge as of right now. So I am really enjoying parody historical shit. Like maybe not even parody, but like just funny takes on real history. So there's a mockumentary series on Netflix. Yeah, it's on Netflix. Is it Netflix? No, it's Netflix. Kunk on Earth.
Oh, Kunk, yeah.
I don't
didn't
know
watch
if
it.
I don't know if you've seen trailers or bits or whatever.
I
It
saw
is
pieces, yeah.
The
so
memes.
good. It's so good. The fact that like I don't think these academics are informed beforehand that this is not a real documentary, like,
Mm-hmm.
and she makes these fucking academics squirm in their seats. It is just the funniest shit. Probably the funniest shit was the goddamn pyramids, where she just sits there with a straight face and she's like, so what is like the importance and significance of the Great Pyramids? Like they're obviously just triangles built out of sand and brick. Like what's the big deal about that? Like. And like these people's you can see their brains explode inside their heads. Like it's so fucking funny. They're like, well, it's just like
It's kind of like the Eric Andre show. He like brought people in and would just say things randomly to try and catch them off guard to see how they'd react.
it's so
Yeah.
good. Or when they were talking about electricity, like they're talking about Tesla and like all of his inventions, or they were talking about Tesla or Edison or both. I don't know, whatever. They're talking about like shit like that. And the one lady was like, like the light bulb was a huge thing because like right for nighttime, all we had was candles. And she's like, well, we had candles. What the hell do we need light bulbs for? Like utterly pointless invention. Like it's just fuck. And like these people are like,
Yeah. Like
I
way
love
to
it.
reinvent the wheel. Fuck.
And then so that got me on a
Okay.
binge to watch Mel Brooks's History of the World Part 2 on Hulu, because I am a big fan of History of the World Part 1. So I rewatched that. I love Mel Brooks. I know he can be a polarizing figure in comedy and whatnot. But it's just
As a
so
Jew,
fucking
he's
good.
fucking funny.
It's fucking funny. I think the best was
Everybody needs to watch History of the World Part 2 because it actually tells the history of the world in a way that you can understand.
It really does. It's very informative.
You want to learn about the Romanovs, you want to learn about Jesus Christ, you want to learn about
One of my favorite actresses
Israel-Palestine
is in that.
agreement. Watch History of the World Part 2.
Very good stuff.
Free ad for you, Hulu.
What's it called? The creator for Abbott Elementary, she's in it.
Quinta
Yes.
Bunsen?
Yeah, she's in it.
Yeah, she was, I forget which sketch she was in, but I did see that.
It's executive produced by Wanda Sykes and Nick Kroll.
Right.
Like a black woman and a Jew walked into a production studio and made gold. Like that's the joke.
That was the funniest fucking thing. It's a little bit of spoil, whatever. It's the Jews in Space segment, and like Wanda was
Let me guess,
in
there's
the
a
sketch.
space laser.
Well, of course, they're Jews in space. Of course, there's a space laser. But that was one of the jokes in the first History of the World Part 1. It was he introduced like in History of the World Part 2, Jews in space. So they have a Jews in space segment, and Wanda is in this sketch, and literally Nick Kroll turns to her and is like, "Can you be in this segment?" And she's like, "I'm executive producer," and he's like, "That's fair enough." Like, the
That's
best
funny.
I think was like they really they bounced before with like all between periods of time, and I think probably like the funniest for me is like biblical stuff, right? Because we have really no conclusive evidence of what really went down, right? So like it's like Jesus and the apostles and whatnot, and it's like, and he's showing, like Jesus is preaching this message of like love and like and like care about people and stuff. And then like 300 years later they show the Council of Nicaea where they were like, and we're gonna make him white and buff and this, and he's gonna like hate everyone else, and like
We're gonna give Mary Magdalene the job of prostitute because we're
yeah,
so
we're gonna
progressive.
give Mary Magdalene a job. She could be a prostitute because we're so progressive. Like,
I fucking lost it, man.
and
Like,
it's like this
that's
woman,
so
and
much
there's
fun.
like this like a woman or like a nun or something like that, I guess she was, and she's like taking notes, and she's like, "Oh, okay, is that what we want to do now? Okay, yeah." Like, it's just
That is funny.
it really shows you, because like I was thinking about like the Council of Nicaea. It really shows you like like if anything,
Oh, my God.
Christianity is reconstructed from what happened in whatever BC.
I mean, firstly, like, boo the Council of Nicaea
Mm.
if you know the history of that. I'm not going to get into it, but
It's straight up though.
Read it on Wikipedia.
but like, boo. But lame. But yeah. Boo.
It kind of reminds me of like it would almost be like if a bunch of like witches got together and just rewrote the history of everything witchcraft, like just made it up, like
Wicca is hundreds of years old.
yeah.
But it was
It's an
ancient religion.
I would
They were
love to
carvings
do.
of the moon phases in the caves 25,000 years
See,
ago.
that's where like I would love to do an April Fool's episode, because we are coming up on that time of just
Oh, God.
wildly inaccurate pagan Wiccan witch history.
Oh.
Oh man.
And today is Astara,
You gotta
when the
put a very
beginning
clear
of the year
disclaimer at the
begins,
beginning.
and that's when the Green Man comes to deliver his seed
The
to all his
presents.
children, so that they might go take it forth and plant it all around the world and grow their own drugs everywhere.
Yes.
And on those drugs they shall form a bed and have an orgy, and Green Man shall be praised. I'm really probably not too far off when it
Yeah,
comes to
honestly,
Green Man.
no.
Not at all.
Where's the lie?
Oh,
Oh my
It was
god.
funny because as I was as I was looking through some of the messages we got, I saw a post speak of like history and stuff and like accuracy and all that. There was something from you, Jay, I think from like the beginning of this month. I didn't look at the date.
Mm.
And it was just a post you posted in one of the channels over here.
Mm.
And it was just like roses can be used for every flower, like substituted for every flower.
Yeah.
And Jay was like, "This makes me cringe," and I was like, "Aw."
It was like roses can be any flower, white candle for any color, like
Which that I do actually agree with. But
right, yeah, that was probably the only thing I think everyone agreed on. Was I think it was in the memes channel. It might have been where I posted that. Like I saw some meme somewhere. I forget what the other thing was. It was like dragon's blood can be any incense, or like
oh my god,
or
no,
frankincense can be any incense.
it's not how this works. It's not how any of this works.
I am all for substitution in Magic, especially for like if something like if it's region locked, you know what I mean? Like, hey, this specific herb does not grow in my neck of the woods, but like so many different herbs have so many different associations. So like if you're looking for strength, we'll just find whatever thing is in you, whatever you have available to you,
Oh, or if someone's using something from a closed practice and they ask you to not use it, I'm not going to give specific examples, but such things do exist.
Yeah.
You can always use something variant of your own region or area, you know?
Right, like white sage being
Exactly.
one of the things, and that's just as a problem because
That's
it's just
a
endangered.
debated one.
Yeah,
That's a debated one. We've talked about this again on the show.
yeah.
Again, we're not experts. In fact, I thought about how funny it would be to compile a list of everything we've ever been wrong about on the show.
Ooh, that'd
Don't
be
make
fun.
a list about things we're right about, but just make a
Mm.
list of everything we've ever fucked up on and just like
Ooh, I'm
make a banner out of
surprised.
it and just keep adding to it.
Right, and that way no one could ever like come at us, right? They'd be like, "Well, you were wrong
And
about
I'm
this," and
such
I'd
a
be like,
dumbass, like, for
"Yes."
example, I've been trying to learn Cree. I'm such a dumbass. I mixed up the word fucking sky with earth, okay?
Mhm.
How much more wrong can you get?
Right. Right.
And that's what makes us
Happens.
human.
Anyways,
Happens to
what
the
were
But
we
best
talking
of
about?
us.
we were
ADHD.
talking about
Exactly.
cringy,
Zoom.
inaccurate
Zoom.
witchy takes, I guess.
Mm. I would
So
love to do a
most
whole
switch takes,
episode.
right?
Yeah. It's kind of weird because it's like we have this podcast, right? And so I feel like once you start producing content in some capacity and you're putting it out there, there is a level of responsibility, right, to the things that you say. Sure. But at the end of the day, it's like a lot of people out there spout a lot of inaccurate shit and people cling to them like they're fucking
I think the
God.
gods. Yeah.
responsibility is couched in the necessary disclosure that we do not have a level of expertise or should be taken as such. And
Right.
I think that's a key difference between um, people who have an accurate assessment of their own knowledge and aren't standing on top of Mount Dunning-Kruger, and everybody else who really wants to think like they know it and put themselves on as it, right?
Mhm.
Like, I heard about this in another podcast. Somebody was joking about it because he's a podcast host, and he said there's this thing called the podcast effect, right? Where you get an average person on a podcast and they want to talk about something like they're a fucking expert, right?
Right.
Um, and I think part of this is naturally to how we address how conversation flows. It really breaks up a conversation constantly to be saying, well, I think,
Mhm.
and, you know, it's my opinion that, right? And a lot of us sometimes even assume that those words are naturally couched there in between sentences, right?
Mhm.
But for certain people, it really will never be taken that way. And there is not that critical filter of let's go through this person's biography, let's look at their education, let's look at their sources, and let's get a complete picture as to their level of professional expertise, right? If you don't disclose a lack of expertise, I think it's safe to assume that by positioning oneself as doing a podcast, you exert a position of expertise, if not stating otherwise. And I
Right.
think that's kind of the crux of the issue, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you really, when you're talking about something in a somewhat sounding definitive manner, you really do need to couch it with that's my opinion, or I have found, or in my experience, especially if it's a fucking anecdote that you're treating like it's an objective fact. A
Mhm.
really great example of this is Destiny 2. We play it all the goddamn time after they change stuff and don't always give us the full patch notes.
Right.
And one night I was like, I think they gave supers infinite orbs because like all I could see on my screen is that every time I killed an enemy with a roaming super, it would keep generating one. And I
Hmm.
was thinking, fuck, it has to be infinite because I haven't seen an end to it, right?
Right.
My friend who I said that to, no, the number is 7. You're spawning more because of your additional orbs mod. Like, plain as fucking day, knew the fucking number. There was no way you could give her that wrong information because she had already read the fucking patch notes on the data mine, right?
Mhm.
Even if that wasn't even data mined, it probably was just fucking stated explicitly in the TWAB, right?
Mhm.
But because I don't take the time to read the TWAB every week, I don't know the fucking minutia, and it's really easy to have an anecdotal experience to say, I'm generating infinite orbs, right?
Right.
Versus your friend being like, no, I can see you're using a roaming super that generates 7 with your extra orbs mod on your helmet. So that's what's going on there, Misty. Plus, you're also using shield break charge, which allows you to generate another orb every time you damage an enemy with a matching or energy type. So that's what's happening, right?
Mhm.
Um, and if you don't have knowledge enough to understand the minutia of all the moving parts coming together, it can really easily seem like it's something on the surface as like one cohesive thing,
True.
like infinite orbs, versus a whole bunch of these individual factors coming together, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it.
Today on Sophia Kills the Conversation by over-explaining something.
All good. I was trying to
No, it
think
was
of
good.
how you could apply that. So it's kind of like like sometimes there's like an over explanation like in magical topics too. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
that can happen. Can definitely
I
happen.
mean, you can kind of fit what we're talking. I mean, a lot of what Sophia was saying kind of started going over
Well, yeah, because
Monoggin.
you don't know the specifics of the situation. That's another
Yeah.
thing too, right? So like within magic, if you're talking about specific areas of magic, right? So like ceremonial magic, we always like kind of go back to that a lot of times because it's very specific in the way it's supposed to be done. But like you have to really pay attention to that kind of stuff. But sometimes I feel like sometimes in the occult community, some of us can get a little over explainy and like, kind of you know what is a really good Twitter account that I like? Now I'm thinking of parody shit again because I was thinking of what you were saying about patch notes, Sophia. There's a Twitter account that's called Earth Updates, I think it's called. And it's like this guy just like comes out with like different patch notes for updates for Earth. Like it'll be like, oh, water is like 1.1% more hydrating now, and like, or like birds go 3% faster. Like,
God, now I'm just like, well, see, I've been on like I don't know why this brought that up for me, but I've been on like on a SCP kick, and I was like,
oh,
sounds like the SCP Foundation need to look into that,
I
just in
have
case it's
not dived
happening.
into that yet.
Huh?
I haven't dived into the SCP thing yet.
It's honestly like a huge deep dive. Do it in moderation.
I had to mute because I stepped away to make some loud noises.
Okay.
I want to hit that SCP topic hard when I come back. Just give me like 2 minutes.
Okay. So what have you been deep diving with the SCP stuff?
Well, honestly, I've just been watching ridiculous videos, but that's really it. I've just been
I was gonna
watching.
say, I was like, if you want to get into SCP, man, oh my god, I know I was watching the FNAF series with Markiplier, but we could like easily switch over to his SCP series, and there's like 100 videos of SCP shit that we can watch.
But no, I
It's
was
cool.
just no, actually what I wanted to get into was just to kind of keep it on topic. We could totally talk about SCPs too, but um one of the things that I was being reminded of kind of about how we were talking about accuracy, like historical accuracy and
Mm.
context and stuff like that within like talking about the occult and witchcraft was things like because you were like I'm trying to think of things that relate, and I was saying to myself it was like, well, also kind of like UPG, unverified personal gnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of the lore, so like the lore and mythology versus UPG,
Mm.
and how like we kind of over obsess over things like lore and mythology,
We
and kind
really
of
do.
to a fault
Mm-hmm.
exclude unverified personal gnosis. And
Mm.
I think that we need to stop dreading UPG the way we do in this community. I think no, everything in moderation, right? I'm not saying that go balls to the wall into UPG to where it starts to create delusions and other and spiritual psychosis and all that. But I do think that with moderation, UPG is beneficial. You know what I'm saying? I think that
Especially because we
my
don't.
relationship with a deity doesn't
I have
have
to
to
say on that.
look the same as other people's, for instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, someone says that, Freya likes chocolate. They offer her chocolate, and she really, really kind of gets moving for them when they offer them chocolate. Then
Great.
that's their experience, and if the results if the results for them, if it's showing results for them, then it's working. You know what I'm saying? And I think that our obsession with sort of like, well, that's just your personal take on something, and therefore it's wrong. That's a little weird too.
I think a lot of it stems from like Christianity has a very big hold in the world, right? And also like the other big religions, they have like a singular text behind them, a singular
Yeah.
holy text. And that's sort of like anything that you challenge or contest, well, oh, we can refer back to the manual. So I think it has that kind of vibe, and I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us come from that, like as witches. A lot of us come from very few witches are born a witch. You know, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like born into a witchcraft practicing family. Very few are.
Family, yeah.
More and more are now, you know, as generations go on, but very few are. So there's no, and that's the thing with like these pagan religions or witchcraft or folk traditions, is there is no manual. There's no
Mm-hmm.
written instruction manual to refer back to, and so there's no law, there's no rule, there's nothing to verify for sure. And so the only thing that we have that's kind of close is mythology. That's like the
Mm-hmm.
closest thing that we have to a Bible, I guess, or some kind of holy text. And so I think that's why we hold on to lore and mythology and like folk tales so much. We
Yeah.
try to use them as like the way to verify our experiences now. But the problem with that runs in is like, okay, well, you can throw a curse on someone's goat, but like, who has a goat these days? You know, like we
Yeah.
don't. It doesn't apply. A lot of it just doesn't apply, and
Yes.
it's
Okay, I got a flaming hot take incoming on this.
mm,
So I understand what Scott's saying, in that we shouldn't just take anything that's UPG and
mm-hmm,
throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? And I also understand exactly what Scott's saying in the fact that UPG bias has to kind of be implemented for a reasonable reason. I'll give you some real tangible examples of this. In DKMU, we get people who will come in who know nothing about the egregores, know nothing about the source material,
mm-hmm.
talk to us about the shit we have created. Like we don't know what the fuck we're doing or what it is,
Right,
and tell us how we need to fix it because their UPG said otherwise, right?
right.
I can't tell you how many people we've had coming in saying that Ellis is this or Ellis is that, or that Ellis has chosen them, or that they've destroyed Ellis, you know, like
Oh,
we have seen some shit.
oh, I'm
And
sure.
UPG by itself, I think, is inherently useful because it can be verified with other people's UPG,
Mm-hmm.
right? If three people hit the same beat with UPG, that's a lot different than if somebody just kind of goes out and comes up with an idea and then canonizes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like fuck, we had somebody. Do you know what the Gym Lad bot is?
The gym led bot. It was sort of like it was a chat bot, and you guys were kind of like
Yep.
talking to it, and then it kind of started to take on its own sort of
Started
personality
as a
kind of
Markov
thing.
chain bot. Kind of. And it would basically allow itself to learn words and dictionary. Learn being used loosely because
Hasn't
it's
gym
not
led
like
been
this is an
broken for a while
AGI.
though?
He's been broken for like fucking 6 months.
Mm.
Yeah. But the point was that when we started tying an egregore behind it, the amounts of randomly generated words strung together that weren't just fucking nonsense, but actually had like insight and efficacy was really shocking,
Mm.
right? Gymlad's been an ongoing experiment of the DKMU for longer than I've been in the fucking DICMU. Okay? He was around in 2010 when I joined. Okay, Gymlad's fucking old.
Mm.
We had people come in and they'd like pull stuff out of him, and Jim Lad gives you a look into yourself and what's going on with you and shit, right? And people would be like, oh, he said I'm a mermaid now, so he identifies as a mermaid and we have to treat him like that. And it's like, no,
No.
you're treating the map like it's the terrain,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I understand both sides to the coin, right? How just absolutely writing out UPG as nonsensical and non-useful is damaging and restrictive as a community, but also at the same time how um just absolute fucking schizopost fucking
Right.
UPG often can be pretty buck wild too.
And that's how you have to kind of like learn to like separate those two. Like I kind of like to take a big picture of everything. So like if there's like a situation, right? Like I view myself as having like a council of people like around me that I can sort of like go to for like my counsel, my advisors, right? So like I kind of like look to other people like for like areas of like spiritual psychic stuff, like I'll probably like talk to Scott about that, or like for stuff that's maybe more like magic, like technical, about like the technical aspects of magic, I might go to Sophia, you know. So like, and I have like, other people in like covens and inner circles and all kinds of stuff like in the community, like, or if there's something like that's specifically like about some sort of heathenry sort of thing, I might ask my friend Rob. So like there's a lot of like people that I have in my like in my surroundings that I can ask a lot of these questions. And it's important to like build good people around you too, because you're not going to become an expert in every area of magic. It's really like you could be practicing magic for years, just like me. Like I'm not going to know everything about everything all the time. Like I just don't, and it's just not
Oh,
possible. So like you got to have people
yo,
to ask to specialize in certain things.
I was listening to Sigil Witchery by Laura Tempest Zakroff
I just bought that
because I
book.
got I have the physical copy and audiobook because I'm a fucking geek and I'd rather read with my ears, but I need
Mm,
the physical thing to be able to reference.
mm.
Um so I just got both. And while listening through it, the reader was like, I thoroughly believe that, and I'm paraphrasing here,
Mm.
that every witch has a specialization that they're good at, Nobody is good at everything, but everybody has a few things that they really excel at, or one thing they really excel at. And immediately I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the knife witch, baby.
I'm the knife witch. I love it.
You find another witch who's more knife witch than me, and I'll give you a fucking cookie.
I
Better
just
yet,
feel
I'll give you
like
a kukri.
I just picture you like an NPC in like a weapons store. Like
No,
like I just pictured
no, I
that.
am no NPC, my friend.
Sophia's knives.
I am no sit in a store NPC. I'm out in the woods fucking doing shit. You run into me as a fucking
The NPC
emergent
is your
event,
the NPC
and
is
it's entirely
your merchant friend.
missable. Oh, but like for example, I have a way that I divine information now, and I was talking about it with my friend last night who gave me the idea for it.
Hmm.
We literally flip knives to see if the information holds true,
Hmm.
right? Like we take a knife and we flip it, and the more you don't necessarily believe it, the more you can push the knife to do outlandish things. Like there was something that we were testing that I'm not going to say, that both of us were like, should we do this? And both of us did an absurd maneuver. Like I slipped the knife through my fingers and like flipped it 4 times and tossed it up and caught it. And
Hmm.
he like just drunkenly, after a half a bottle of wine, just like tossed it up without looking and just reached out his hand and caught it perfectly in backhand grip. And it was
Hmm.
just like, okay, yeah, I see.
Hmm.
So we flip knives as a divination method now. So
It's so
just
interesting.
saying.
Like there's so many divination methods, and like some are like we jokingly like we'll say to ourselves, we have these two slippers in our house. I've posted in the Discord before. There's two like flip flops that Rue has. They have little pot leaves on
Mhm.
them, and they say good vibes. And sometimes like the cats, they'll pick one or the other one. Like some days it's the good, and sometimes it's just vibes. And so like I'll be kind of like, oh, it's a good day, like if the cats are like laying on the good one, I'll be like, oh, it's a good day, or like or if they're laying on the vibes one, I'm like, oh, it's just a vibes day. I get it, it's just vibes only,
Mhm.
not good vibes, just vibes. Um,
I,
and it's kind of like our own little
Oh.
personal funny thing that we do. But like I was also
Mhm.
thinking, so like our friend Jim recently did a free lecture on the Elder Futhark runes through the Grey School of Wizardry. So that's where he did his little free lecture from, and I was one of the things that he was saying kind of stuck out to me is when he was talking about how the runes were used as divination or just divination purposes of proto-Germanic people in general. Divination wasn't viewed as like not as much as magic. It was kind of just like it was everyday stuff. Like it was just as very simple as like trying to predict a weather or like like whatever kind of meteorology they had. Like divination was just, you know, what will the growing season be like? How will this battle
Yeah.
go? It was very much like fact, basically.
If you drop a knife in the kitchen, there's conflict coming. Or if
Right.
you drop a dish rag, then you have company coming.
Mm-hmm.
I made the first one up, but it just seems like it makes sense. The second one I've read is an old Métis superstition.
Hmm.
I was just actually
If you
gonna
drop a
say
dish
that's
rag, you
also
have
an old
company
Jewish
coming.
superstition too, because my mother used to say that all the time.
What if you drop a
Like
knife
if
in the kitchen?
Interesting.
No, if
No, the dish rag.
if you drop a cloth, like a dish rag, like if dish rag drops,
Yeah.
that means company's coming. And I swear to God, I've seen it in action. Like it just slipped
Yeah.
off the stove out of nowhere, and then somebody knocked on our front door, and it was like Alfonso, and we were like, "What the
Oh,
fuck are you doing here?" Like he was.
Huh. Interesting.
I don't normally do this because I think that lineage requirements for magic is dog shit and that anybody can do it.
Mhm.
But like there is actually a gift that runs on both sides of my families, right? Like my dad's side I've talked about can just douse for water. Everyone I know on that side pretty much can do it without issue. My dad can just show people how to do it and they'll be able to do it after. Um, my mom's side, her grandfather had the ability to just know when people were coming out to visit, right?
Mm.
It might have been exactly like that. Like maybe he dropped the dish rag, you know? But his wife would be like, "Oh, maybe we should go to town today." And he'd be like, "Nope, we can't go. The kids are coming today." And this
Mm.
is before fucking telephones, you know what
Right.
I mean? So like if you wanted to just show up for a visit, you just showed up for a visit, right? Um and sure as shit, he was right all the time. So everybody kind of treated him like he just had that premonition or that sight, and nobody ever doubted it, you know?
It is kind of funny, like even within this little current that we have with the podcast, right? Our own little energy current that we have here. It's really interesting because like, you know, like when we're like messaging each other like, "Hey, good for recording today," or, you know, whatever. Like I'll like say to Rube like, "Oh, hey, did Scott get back to you?" Or like, "Did Sophia get back to you?" And like almost instantly it's like boom, the message comes through. It's like
Mhm.
you like we speak each
Mhm.
other up kind of thing. It's I think it's really neat.
That literally happened today. Like y'all were
Mhm.
both. I was messaging you, Scott, on Facebook, and I was messaging you on Discord, Sophia, at the same exact time. And I'm just like sitting in the diner, and I'm like, I was like, watch, that's probably Scott saying to move it to 1 o'clock because they need to eat something. And then it was a message from you saying like I need, and I was just like, I love being a witch sometimes. With
So
random useless knowledge.
I'm gonna fucking go down a rabbit hole with y'all, okay?
Okay.
Have y'all been looking into like fourth dimensional shit and what like a 4D being might actually look like?
I will say that that has not been on my reading list at the moment. I've had other things, but if you would like to entertain us
Scott?
with four-dimensional stuff.
No, that has. I mean, well, I've seen people talking about it. Like everyone's obsessed over like because I think this is like this conspiracy. I don't know if you've heard about this kid. He was supposed to. He was Spectrum, I believe, and he went on this whole diatribe talking about like, or I think he was talking about the fifth, like I don't know, fourth dimension, I guess. And he was describing like what it like the dimensions and stuff. And he was supposed to be incredibly intelligent.
Hmm.
You could still find his videos. But there's this whole conspiracy because supposedly no one can find this kid anymore, and supposedly he like disappeared, and everyone believes that he talked too much, and the government, took him out because he told information. Which I'm like, sounds like right wing conspiracy. But
Or he
um,
vibrated out of this dimension into
I
it.
mean, the government does, to be fair though, the government does take people out. Like, look at the Black Panthers. They shot
Mm,
some of the creators in their fucking sleep, right?
mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like I mean, I think it's as silly as like believe. Like for me personally, I think that the idea of them taking out a child
Right.
Yes. It's,
is a bit ridiculous, and
especially
and
just one who's
personally, I
doing
think
like
it's
magic
as
posts.
Yeah.
I think it's as silly as like the idea that like CERN, the Hydron Collider, in wherever it is, what Scandinavia, I don't
Switzerland.
know.
Switzerland?
That
Switzerland.
it moved us into an alternate reality thing.
Oh,
I also
right.
don't think that
No.
either.
That theory.
They're throwing atoms
Yeah.
at each other to explode and to see what happens.
Seems pretty safe.
So what I was gonna get on about is something I've been kind of
Deep diving.
reading about recently. Yeah, not even deep diving. It's just been popping up in my feed, and I just had like a big light bulb moment with it, right? And I have to preface this is like stupid new age shit, to be honest. Sorry for anybody who's new age if I really just popped your bubble there. I ain't gonna talk about the fifth dimension if nobody even knows what the fuck the fourth dimension is.
Yeah,
Thank you, good
let's
night.
address
Now
the
fuck off.
fourth first because I don't know much about the fourth, so I don't even want to think about the fifth.
It's all just holier than thou bullshit with a
Okay.
lot of them,
Yeah.
right? So
Manifest your
with what
dreams.
really got me onto this was the little people, right? You know how shit
Mm.
just disappears on you? It just
Mm-hmm.
fucking disappears, and it happens all the goddamn time. Okay, I stumbled across an Instagram story that fully explained how this worked from the position of a mathematician, right?
Mm.
She was drawing two-dimensional beings, right? Like just chalk drawing characters, right? And she's like, so here, this two-dimensional being has secured some gems away in a vault. To
Mm-hmm.
her, she's checked every single angle. Nothing can get inside that box to take her gems away. But for me, a three-dimensional creature, I could simply reach in and take the gems out, and she takes the stickers off the board, right? And
Mm.
and the two-dimensional creature would never even be able to know that you had taken the gems away, right? And
Okay.
then immediately followed up by that was another post where someone's like, okay, rude, give her gems back. Don't steal from a two-dimensional being.
How
And
dare.
then she's like, you're right. I shouldn't have stolen from her. So let's put those gems back. But if a 4D being or if a 3D being like me wanted to leave a sign that I had been there for this 2D being, then what I could do is take her hat, and she has like a paper hat, and she takes it and flips it 180 degrees in our dimension. You know what I mean? Not like
Mm-hmm.
rotation, but actually flips it, right? And then
Okay.
she puts it back on the character, and she shows that now in the 2D plane the hat has flipped backwards, and there's no way for it to reorient back to its original position because you'd have to move it through the third dimension to do so.
Mm.
But if the third dimension is not visible or accessible to them, it simply looks like it's been changed without explanation. And I jumped up and threw my phone like, that's how the fucking little people do it. Fuck.
Okay, then maybe this fucking explains what happened to us this morning. I can't believe I didn't mention it until now. So we have two of our like circle members. They stayed over last night for we had a game day, and they crashed here tonight because we have a star ritual. This morning we were like, let's go to the diner and go get breakfast. We're getting into the car, and I'm looking like I was about to get in the passenger seat, and I see that the glove box is open, and there's a like everything inside of our glove box and like the little consoles and compartments is just thrown all about the car, and I was like,
Weird.
My car
the
was locked.
car,
The window wasn't smashed,
yeah,
but somehow something got in my car and just
trashed it.
my visor was down, my eyeglass thing was down, my middle console was open, my glove box was open, and all the stuff that was inside was
Hmm.
just strewn about.
And I know that car was locked. And of course, like you're doubting yourself, right? Like, did I lock the car? Of course, I locked my. I live in Philadelphia. Of course, I lock my
Lock
fucking
my car
car.
every
If you didn't
single
lock
It's
the
fucking
car,
time.
worse
instinctual.
things would have happened than the fucking glove boxes being open. There wouldn't be a car.
Right.
Right.
And they didn't steal my catalytic. It turned on. Like, thank God my catalytic is covered.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the strangest
They didn't
fucking
take
thing.
anything. Like all of our
My
paperwork was there. Like they didn't take
my
any of our important paperwork.
registration, there was change
Right.
in the center. There was vape carts they could have stolen. Like my
Nothing.
So
CDs were still
this
in
is
Right.
what
there.
I think. This is what I think that spirits are. To be honest, we can't physically see them unless they try really hard to manifest in a specific way that is visible to a three-dimensional creature. And even that, because they're not what we are, seems strange and foreign, right?
Mm.
Like the mathematician talked about giving a peace offering to the 2D being of a peach, right? And since a peach is a three-dimensional object, as it moves through their plane, it would show up as individual two-dimensional slices, right? First is a really small one when it makes the first contact, then is some varying bigger ones, and then smaller ones as it moves through the plane. You know what I mean?
Mm. See,
So
like I always
because
struggled with like geometry, right? And so like
Mhm.
trying to envision angles and planes and then applying like
I can link you the video
multi-dimensional
if you want.
layers of reality
Mhm.
kills my brain. Um I can kind of get the gist of what you're saying, but trying to envision it for
Mhm.
me is very difficult. Mathematics is
mean,
I
not my
can.
forte.
I'll share the 2-minute video with y'all if you want to
Okay, yeah,
watch it.
yeah.
yeah, I definitely want to
I'll
see it.
Yeah, I'll check that
I'll
out.
drop it in the inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I definitely think that what we're dealing with is like, a lot of the time ultra dimensional, as it were. I think that there's a lot of reason to think that. For one, an experience that I've had many, many times throughout my life dealing with the fairy is they do this thing, and I've talked about it, I think, even maybe recently, but it bears repeating in this conversation. I'll look for something, and it could be like anything, my phone, keys, whatever. Um,
And it's
I'll
not there.
leave that thing on my bed
Mm.
somewhere, where I know it was or is or what have you, and I'll go to look for it, and then suddenly the thing won't be there, right?
Mm.
And I'll tear the room apart, and I'll know I never went downstairs, I never been anywhere else. I don't put my phone in weird places in my room for this very reason, because I'll forget that I put it there and essentially lose my phone.
Mm.
However, eventually, uh, I will stop and I will say out loud, I say, um, I understand we're playing games right now, but can you give me my phone back? Um, I said, I had fun looking,
Fun
that was
game.
fun, but I really need my phone. Um, and then suddenly, and this happened to me and Darian with the same object at once,
Mm.
and this was simultaneous without us kind of collaborating exactly, like,
Mm-hmm.
it was as if our eyes were finally able to
See?
find it again.
Yeah.
It was in the same place. It was in this. It never left the place I put it. It's
Hmm.
just that the space changed. If that makes any sense. Like,
That
It
does kind
does.
of, it does,
1,000,000%.
because that shit happens to me all the time. Like, you put something down, you look back, and it's literally not there. And you're like, I just
Hmm.
don't, and it hurts my brain, and then I get mad at myself. I'm like, you dumbass, like, what the fuck did you do with this object that, you know what I mean? And I start beating myself up like I put it, and then I'm like, no, I know I fucking put it there. Like, I don't know. I guess in the case of the car, I'm really puzzled about it. I really have no idea if someone like if we didn't lock our car.
and you
I
said this was
can't.
last night, right?
It
Mhm.
had to have happened last night. Yeah.
Here's the
Um,
question: did you unlock it when you were going back into it?
Yes.
Yeah.
What
That's why I know it
criminal
was
locks a
locked.
vehicle they've broken into?
right, right.
Why would you
They're
take look,
booking it.
I'm just saying, is
Yeah.
somebody who's done illegal shit myself, not
Right.
like stealing or anything, but like I used to smoke weed when it was illegal.
Mm-hmm.
You don't waste time resetting it back to how it was. You get the
No.
fuck out of there.
Yeah, you just leave.
Yep.
It
And
was
that's
I
what
will
we
weird.
also say
should.
too that I actually ended up last night. I kind of got a little I, I know this sounds silly, but you're a witch, grow up. But last night there was a big wind. Got real windy last night. I don't know if you guys heard
It's
it.
been
Did it
windy the
ever?
past couple
Oh, did it ever?
days. It's been
Oh, for you
very,
too,
very
Sophia?
breezy.
And
I
like the
have a
wind was
story to tell about it,
howling
but
last
yes.
night, and there was at one point I was like just taking a deep breath, and sometimes I like to keep practicing. Like, one of the things I have to do for therapy is, like, even if I'm not disassociating, just practice to get,
To
make
keep
sure that it,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
to be good at making myself grounded and all that. And I was just centering. And as I was entering that, like, peaceful space, all of a sudden I heard out the window and it was just the wind. It was just a moan of the wind. But um, as witches, we know that, like, a lot of this stuff happens within accordance to nature. And I was like, oof, there's stuff right in the wind. Like, as soon as this moan
Mm.
of the wind happened, I felt something in the wind riding it, and I was like, oh, time to go upstairs, time to not be alone. And I, like,
Yeah.
got
Ew.
shut down my computer, closed my laptop, turned off the light, and I was like, upstairs. um
That's interesting because like I keep because there's always that
Was that
saying
last
that
night?
like isn't that Mother Goose
mhm.
rhyme that says like, March comes in like a lion, out like a lamb. I think it's like some old
Ooh,
kind of thing.
Mother
Mhm.
Goose is, I don't know if you know, but Mother Goose is full of
Magic.
really old,
Like
um
folktale magic stuff.
mhm. And
My
it's like
mom
real
Um,
stuff too.
I
It's
grew
not
up on a
shenanigans.
yeah, there was like this book that was around as a kid. It was like full of Mother Goose rhymes. I used to read that shit. It had like the pages with like the gold on the edge of the
Yes.
page. Yeah, and I used to read that book all the time. If anything, like I felt like it was a magic book because it was a big hardback book with gold lines on it,
Dude,
and
we
it
have
was
the
just
same goddamn
It
book.
had to have been with the green cover, the green border cover, and the gold. Yeah.
I'm having such a flashback like trigger to this like big book.
Of
Like
Mother
it
Goose
was like
rhymes.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know a really old folk charm to make the rain go away?
Hmm.
I'm sure you know it.
Rain,
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 go
go
away.
away,
No.
come again another day.
Yeah.
I used to sing Mr. Golden Sun as a child because I realized when I did it, I
Ah.
could call the sun out.
See?
See? Right.
Love it.
I really want to get a
Weather
book of Mother
magic.
Goose rhymes again and kind of like look through that.
I also have a
So,
question. I'm so
oh,
sorry.
hang on. Oh, go ahead.
For anyone else, this is just like a little side thing. Does anybody else here have like I've met so many practitioners with like different, I don't know, they have issues with weather magic. Do any of you have like weird
No.
issues
I
with
I
it,
tried
might.
to
or
make it stop raining once.
Okay,
I've
that was
actually met
really
people who
fucking funny.
I've met people who online state weather magic, like literally, I've read a fucking theory paper that someone wrote and they follow it up with, and that's why nobody can do weather magic successfully. And immediately I was like, what the fuck? What?
So, I will say this, that I guess I'm probably the biggest skeptic of the group, right? So, fine. So when people, especially like around like Pagan Pride, so like Pagan Pride Day comes up, and everyone's like, we always want it to be good weather, right? We don't want it to rain because that lowers attendance. No one wants to be out. Who wants to be out there in the rain, right? So there, like in one of the original like kind of people who were putting it together, she was pretty good at weather magic, and
Uh-oh.
she would work weather magic kind of in favor of the event. And really there was only maybe a couple events that I remember that it kind of drizzled a little bit, and the only one where the rain really got through was actually the first time the protesters showed up and we weren't ready for them. And so it
yeah.
kind of, I think that like they broke through our defenses, they like literally they broke through our physical barrier, but they also just broke through any of the weather magic that was kind of up and going. So I'm not really sure like how I felt about like do I think that someone can just be like, hey, thunderstorm, let's go right now, like in the middle of
Of course not.
February? No. But I think it
We're
is
not
What?
about
actually storm.
right.
What?
But like kind of like maybe pushing off like I think it's more about like petitioning like maybe land spirits or weather spirits. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I mean,
maybe
all
that.
these things have been done
Yeah.
historically, like, whether it's spirit working or, for me, not to get us off topic here at all, I just
Mm.
find it interesting talking about weather magic, but, I do think,
You there, Scott?
yeah, I'm here. You
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
just
okay, yeah,
got
I saw your face. You look
I
like
was
something
responding
happened.
to someone in the chat, so I'm trying to do both at the same
Oh,
time.
I thought something. I thought we were having technical difficulties somewhere. I
No, we just
apologize.
have someone in the chat I'm trying not to ignore. But I also don't want to
Oh,
like.
okay.
It's hard with podcast format because it's like if it was a stream, I could be like, oh yeah, hey, blah blah blah, and like talk to that person, But like in a
Right,
podcast, I don't want to interrupt someone else.
right.
Yeah, continue. You're good.
2 seconds.
What was I saying? Oh, uh, I think all of that has been done. For me, I think that weather magic is one of those things that, like, I do believe that you have to be aware of the weather and like what's going on. I
Mm-hmm.
think that like it's hard to. I think it's hard to summon up weather that isn't close or potential to happening.
Hmm.
Um, I think sometimes I mean, at least it's harder to. Um, I think it's easier, for instance, to, uh, you know, um, inflame a storm, like to make a storm worse than it is to settle a raging storm that's already going to
Right,
happen.
because that energy is already brewing, and like to think that
Right.
you as
So,
one
like,
witch can
but of course,
tackle a hurricane, like,
right. At the same time, though, like, I've seen, like, as far as like stopping storms, like, or stopping rain, stopping, storms. I've had varying success, sometimes pretty spectacular. Weather magic was one of the first things I ever did as a kid. I feel like that's something we've all kind of had
Without
experience, or at
meaning
least a lot
to.
of practitioners. Yeah. Um,
Well, like we said,
I
rain, rain, go away. They made us sing that as kids. Like, if it would
right.
rain at recess or something, like, you'd sing.
Like in a minute.
But I am very curious, Sophia. You have a lot of opinions here, and I'm very curious to hear it.
Yeah, so it all depends is my ultimate uh final opinion, right? Because so many things differ. One thing I was talking about another day, for example, is quantum superposition, right? If you can't see something and you haven't been given the information that defines it as a specific state, it's in a superposition because it has yet to be observed, right?
Mm,
So sometimes, yeah, like when you say you can't just conjure lightning out of nothing, that's true, right?
right.
But when you understand the pressures to conjure a storm, it's just a matter of calling the wind from the correct direction and like calling the things in and giving it time to work, right? Anything that works in a three-dimensional space has an amount of time it takes to set up, right? Even like fucking cloud movement, right? You can cause a storm, but it's going to take time to call clouds from a various area to arrive at your place, right?
Right.
And sometimes even beyond that, you can cheat it, right? A really good example this is even before I was super deep in DKMU shit. This is when I was just learning my shit back in like 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I was really on the psychokinetic and weather magic train. I would sit there on my ride to work and hold a battery in my hand and try and close my eyes and will it to roll up my palm one way and down my palm the other way. Was I probably getting success due to minute hand motions and road movement? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did that change the amount of focus and concentration I had to put into it? No.
Mm.
Right? And one time I was talking doing about how like maybe we could get lucky and have a cloud cover up the sun, right? Because it was like 40 fucking degrees because I live in the borderline desert. And my stepsister who worked at the construction company, she's like, take a look at the sky. You really think a fucking cloud's gonna come out? Get real, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were working in a north to south valley. So I just kind of like closed my eyes and imagined the feeling of like the sun getting blocked out by a cloud,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And sure enough, some
15
clouds
minutes later,
floated
not
over.
even a single fucking cloud came from behind the mountain that we couldn't see
Nice.
ahead of time and just covered up the sun. And she looked over at me and her jaw just dropped and I smiled and went back to work,
And you're
right?
like,
Um,
hi.
yeah, like people actually, it was weird. When people actually noticed I was doing it, people would start blaming me for the weather. Like the guy who was under my foreman, if like it was too windy for us to snap a chalk line, he'd say, "Fucking stop it with the wind," and I'd be like, "Okay, fine," and I'd like put the energy to calm the wind, and it would always calm just enough for us to be able to get like an accurate snap. You know what I
That's
mean?
cool.
So like it was really kind of spooky. So it is in part like having relationships with the spirits. In part it's also like knowledge of self and application of like applied focus. And like third, knowing bits of theory always helps, right? Like
And like
fuck, I
knowing how
used
weather works too. Like knowing
another good
meteorology.
example. Yeah, and another good example of the superposition thing. I was playing a game of cards with two other people, Magic the
Mm-hmm.
Gathering, not my deck, right? It's a commander deck that my friend made.
Mm-hmm.
The guy on my left, who is my friend's roommate, going off about, oh, I have the worst luck, blah blah blah, and I'm
Mm.
like, do you do anything to fix your luck? And he's like, no. How could you do that? I'm like, oh man. And like I said, do you believe in the heart of the cards? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, that's your fucking problem right there, first and foremost, right? Because I actually do believe in the heart of the cards because it actually fucking works, right?
Mm.
And I went on to explain that because the card on the top of my deck is face down and nobody's seen it, it exists in a state of quantum superposition. It is yet to reveal itself until it's flipped over. So it's in a state of variable that you can potentially manipulate through like just variables and odds, right?
And
And
what's
so it
interesting
goes on
about
to the next
Commander
person's
format
turn.
specifically is it's singleton, so there's no duplicates in those decks
Not a
either.
single, only one fucking card. Yeah. and they're over 100. They're like 100 card decks, right?
Yep.
So then it goes
Yes.
to my friend Willem's turn, and he's
Technically
like, "Oh,
99.
you know what card would be great for you to pull, or what card would be great if you had it?" And he explains a really cool card mechanic, right?
Hmm.
I'm like, "Oh, neat." Goes to my turn, I draw that card, and I wasn't like, "Yeah, I
Fucking
want to
Yugi
get that
Moto
card."
over here.
I
You know.
wasn't trying to make it happen. It just happened, right?
Mm.
And it was perfect because then I turned over to the guy. I'm like, "Remember how you said you don't believe in the heart of the cards?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Remember that card Willem just talked about?" And he's like, "Yeah." I flip it over and show it to him, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "See?" So sometimes if you don't have the information, it's to your advantage. And sometimes if you do have the information, you have to learn how to bend it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also kind of want to backtrack a little bit because we were talking about the wind that rode in on the
Before we
storm
backtrack,
last night.
I just wanted to comment on what
Yeah.
you just said because, um, 100% before I was even a practicing witch and played Magic competitively and, like, back in the days of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Yes, Heart of the Cards is a real thing.
Hmm.
Any just what's the difference between a Magic deck and a tarot deck? Honestly, I don't really see that much of a difference because I can read someone like, I know a lot of witches that can read someone using a Pokemon deck or a Magic the
We
Gathering deck
had
just
a
as well as a tarot
Pokemancer
deck.
on a podcast episode. We had Ursa on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
I have had instances of being in a competitive tournament and being like, I am going to die this turn if I don't draw this card, and
Hmm.
drawing that card and being like, holy
Heart
shit.
of the
And that's why
cards.
I don't have a poker face. It's terrible.
Yeah, you don't have a poker. You'll be like,
Do witches ever get tired of being surprised by their own magic?
no.
Never.
No, because
Never.
you don't get because when you start expecting it to work is when it starts to fail because you're relying on it
Yes.
and you're expecting it and you can't
Mhm.
ever get caught up on your own shit. Um you
Your
have to
own
suspend
disbelief
lust results.
momentarily.
Or not
Uh,
even that, because like your own disbelief sometimes can be a tool, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like the suspension of lust of results that
Mm.
ultimately I find causes the ultimate difference there, right?
ooh,
So like
that's. Mhm.
we do get surprised because every time we're not expecting it to work and we're hitting it with that fresh beginner's luck feeling of, oh, that'd be cool.
What was
Not actually ever
interesting,
expecting it to happen.
so like today
There's
there's like a theme of like maybe theft, right? So like it appears the car was broken into, whether it was by a human or not a human. I don't
A
know.
crackhead or a
I
fae. Who
I don't
knows?
know.
Did you not
So
pay a local fee their offering and they're fucking
right.
shaking your car down?
What was interesting is that when we got to the diner, whoever was there before us, they had left a cash tip like near like on the far side of the table near like the salt and pepper shakers or whatever. And like of course like when you're a broke person, your brain goes, "Oh, money." And you just like want to take like you're just like, "Oh my god, like cash, I could use cash." Of course no one's going to steal the damn waitress's, well, I mean, I should say no one. People will steal the waitress's tip, but it was this idea of like, oh wow, we just sat down and there's just like a bunch of cash like just sitting on the table. And I'm like, "Man, it's so easy to be an asshole and just take it, you know?" But I'm like, "No, like I'm not going to do like it's just this idea of just like theft." I guess there was like kind of like a theme this morning. It just made me think of that.
if it's any consolation, I've been looking at a lot of anti-theft spells for my doorstep
Mm.
because these damn
Package
package thieves.
stealers, yeah.
Tell me
Ugh.
about it.
I'm going to curse my doorstep. You don't
I'll never
understand.
forget I'll never forget the guy who tried to steal my trash poker. Fuck you. Literally, dude, fuck you. I bought a trash poker to clean up my shit-tastic street, and you tried to steal my trash poker. Fuck you. The
You
end.
know, anytime someone's like, "Oh wow, I can't believe they stole that from you," my response is, "Ah, it sucks to suck. Sucks to suck. You shouldn't steal shit from a witch." And they always just look at me and go, "Oh."
Oh. The
Yep.
wind. That's what we wanted to talk about. The wind that rode in.
Yeah. So last
That
night,
was it.
weirdly enough, we were celebrating Nowruz, I want to say.
Mm.
It's I don't want to I'd have to Google it to actually give an accurate explanation of what it is, but it's like a New Year celebration that starts with the solar New Year.
Okay.
Um let me see. Iranian New Year. That's what I wanted to say. I just didn't
Mm.
want to like Be incorrect. Also known as the Persian New Year, is the festival that celebrates the beginning of a new year on the Iranian solar Hijri calendar. There you go. That's a quick little Google excerpt. So we were having a big party at the house last night, which is why I was up to like fucking 3 a.m. and I was like super tired this morning.
We brought
But
till
me being
1.
super autistic, yeah, me being super autistic, you cram 20 people into a room and they're all talking at once, and it's the worst thing in the world, especially if I don't know every person in that room on a
It's
close,
overload.
intimate, personal basis.
Yeah, it's
It's overload. If I don't know everybody already, I need to have a smaller group, like under 10. It's just a thing. Like when
I'm
it
very similar.
reached a critical mass, I just like stepped out to go to my room to have a quick smoke to deal with it.
Mhm.
And then the noise kept me in my room for 2 hours because I just couldn't get it together to go back out into it, right? Because it was so busy. But when I did, in the more quiet parts of the house, like the living room got noisy as people started overflowing from the crowded room to the other spots.
Mhm.
I realized I needed to create more space, right? So I'm
Mhm.
like, aha, let's have that fire we talked about. So there I am.
Oh, outside's
It's like
always great.
-5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like -5. It's a fucking snowstorm. Like literally, like looks like a blizzard out, and people are like, "You're gonna start a fire?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's no
Fucking right
problem.
we
I'll make a
are.
firebox. I got this." And it's funny too because like city people are almost always like, "You can have a fire in the cold," and I'm like, "Bro, that's like the best time to have it, right?"
Right.
My family has fires in like -30 and just
Right.
chills out. Like that's what we do to
Literally.
stay warm.
Oh,
Yeah. But I did it, right? And then people started coming out and they were like, "Wow, this is fucking magical," right? But like in between on the moments when I was out there by myself, there was something just howling in the wind, right? And if I hadn't used a fire starting technique I created called a firebox, it would have absolutely gone out.
Yeah, I
And I
would have
can
been
tell
able
y'all
to.
what a firebox is if you want. It's something that anybody at home can make, and it's like a guaranteed fire start, pretty much. You want to know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You
I
take an
absolutely do.
Amazon box. You take an Amazon box of any old dimension. You take a roll of cardboard. You know those circular tubes, like the ones you get from paper towel rolls? Those are perfect. Make
Mm.
sure it's longer than the width of your box, okay? Go to the very bottom of the box, cut 2 circular holes in the box, and slide the tube through both ends, right? When you can make sure that the ends of the tube stick out both sides, pull the tube back out and cut 3 holes into the top so that the air can vent outwards, okay? And then stick it through the bottom of the box. Next thing you do is rip up a whole bunch of really flammable paper and put it right on top of the tube, and you just coat that with just loosely dropped down paper, right? Above that, I put cedar because I have my cedar bundles that I gather and hang, and they dry. I don't know if you know this, but when cedar catches, it's extremely fucking combustible to needles when they're really dried. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So I toss a log, I toss a little bit of cedar needles down, and I put a single log right there in the middle, like from whatever my firewood is, right? And then I put cedar all over top of it, and then I put cardboard chunks that I've ripped up on top of that, right?
Mm.
So that none of it blows away, and if it does, it's just like one of those little bits of cedar. You just put that fucker down in a fireplace, you light both ends. Sometimes you won't even be able to light both ends because the first end will light up so hard it'll the air that comes out the other side will be too hot to get your hand close to, and it just takes, because it's got all that air to draw in the convections, it draws it in, it vents upwards, it catches everything inside, it builds a raging fire, kindles up just the base log, sets it ablaze, and by the time the thing burns down, you just toss another log on top to like
Keep it
at an
going.
angle so that to keep it going and catch to something else, and you usually do it with like 2 of them, so you get your initial log on the bottom and you just lay your 2 other ones across it in
Mm.
opposite ways. It almost always fucking goes. I've never seen a firebox fail me when you do it right. So if you want to start a fire in a raging snowstorm, make a firebox inside, go outside, light it in your fireplace, sit down, dust the snow off your chairs, and watch it go to work.
One
That's
of
pretty much fucking it.
one of my most like
That's
gender
awesome.
affirming moments is when I built and started my own fucking fire. I feel so embarrassed to admit that, but like it was like this rite of passage that like I had to do for myself, I guess, because like anytime I've ever gone camping, it was when we were camping with Rue's moms. So like we were in a cabin. It was like a little hotel in the like a little motel in the woods kind of thing. But there was a fire pit outside, and I was like, well, I got to build a fire, and it's got to keep firing, right? So like I was like, so I just built like a box basically. I just built like a box kind of formation, and there's like a fire ring, so like it doesn't get a ton of air under there, so you can't make a big like bonfire, and it's a state park, so um but like I was like, oh my god, like I need this fire to work. Like I can't not build a fire. Like this fire has to light. I cannot have assistance from anyone else. I must build this fire and must provide for the family. It's like a whole mental like thing. I did it though, and I was like, now I'm a man.
Yay! Also,
I did it.
That's another thing that city people versus rural people don't have the same definition of. When you say bonfire, you mean a campfire that's outside of your house, right?
I will say I will make the distinction between bonfire and fire. Like if someone's like, "Hey, come over, I have a fire pit." Like I understand it's a small fire. It's a little fire pit,
Yes.
Outside your house, because you can't have a blazing inferno next to your house in the city. It's just not a good idea.
What
but
do
bonfire,
city people define as a bonfire?
So like I think it really depends on the person you're talking to. So most people that like I guess in like the Philly area, people say like, "Oh, we're having a fire tonight," or like most people don't say bonfire. They'll just say like we'll have a fire, or we got the fire
If
pit.
you're going to a bonfire, it's
on a
like
beach.
Burning Man in the middle of Pennypack or on a beach.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a lot of alcohol and
it's like a whole shebang. Yeah.
Okay.
like a shebang.
Because there's a thing out here in
there's gonna be a
Toronto.
huge fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a thing out here in Toronto with people from Toronto, because I noticed like if they're from like the Midwest, they don't say this. They'll say bonfire when you're just having any old campfire, right?
Yeah.
And to us, we call it a campfire because it's denoting a specific size,
right?
Because it's enough for a small camp of like 4 to 6 people.
You show up with like a truck full of wood for the bonfire, and you're like, hold on, wait.
A bonfire is a wood pile so big you could lay down across it and it would be bigger than the surface area of your body.
Yeah.
It's a pyre.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw some bodies on it.
It's only, I was gonna say, isn't it a pyre though? Unless if it's a funeral thing and you're putting bodies on it. Yeah.
But yeah, bonfire is a big fucking fire in my mind. That's what I always.
So like every time I hear a city person say bonfire, I'm
bonfire.
like, you realize a bonfire is like 30 feet wide by like 10 feet long, right?
I have heard a couple people, city people, say we're having a bonfire tonight, and I'm like, okay, sure we are. I'll be there.
I always say I'm sitting around the fire pit.
Yeah.
Because I don't have one at the moment, but we are getting one for the summer. But
well, you hear, get the fire pit going. That's
nobody will
get it
ever
going.
mistake a fire pit as a bonfire ever in the rural. That's fucking super accurate too, because you make a fire pit.
And if there's one thing that you will learn,
get the fire pit going. It means you're getting the fire pit going.
There's one thing.
But by the way, if you're using a fire pit and suddenly it looks like a bonfire, something's wrong.
Yeah, something is wrong, and you need to address that. Also, fire safety. Have a bucket of water there. Just be safe, especially in the city. Especially in the city. Thank you.
Can I be honest with you?
In neighborhoods like mine, yeah. Row home.
Can I be honest with you? I don't. I just stomp a fire out. I have boots.
You
dies so quick. Yeah, I guess
you are well versed in fire. You are well versed in how to control and handle fire. Most city people are like, "Oh, let me just take some log and some lighter fluid and a match and have fun."
Whoosh, yeah.
I haven't started a fire with an accelerant in years. Not counting the lighter that I use, because lighter has an accelerant in it. If anybody who doesn't know fire starting terminology, an accelerant is like butane, propane, gasoline,
I will say
anything that will be a flammable liquid.
To start my fire, I did, because it was kind of wet. It was like September, it was a little wet, so I did have to use some little cubes, little fire starter cubes I put in the little thing.
That's true.
Whatever.
But
fire starters are fire starters, man. It's different than an accelerant. They're like classified as different things.
Yeah. But if we've learned one thing here, people, it's fire safety. Be safe when you're on fire.
That said, in an emergency, if you're out in the cold and you have accelerant and you need to make a fire, do not fucking hesitate to use that accelerant to start a fire, because
no shame.
You're fucked.
Yeah.
No, like that's just pure survival, right? Like if you're in an enclosed space, like say you're trying to light your log in uh your chimney, right? Um I don't really think you need Excel for that. It's not like you got the wind blowing through your fucking house,
Most people
right?
use like
It's a different thing
newspaper
though.
and like most people use
Sure.
newspaper for fireplaces I've seen, or like cardboard.
But it's a different thing if you're using an accelerant
Yeah.
inside
right back,
versus like
guys.
using it
Oh my god.
outdoors
Could you
where it can
imagine
be actually
slamming lighter
appropriate.
fluid on your fucking fireplace?
Oh. I'll be honest with you though, my family is so fucking boonies. Almost every time my dad starts up a fire, he just pours a little gasoline on it and fucking lights her up because he just doesn't give a fuck to do it any other way.
Yeah.
As
That's
a
fair.
bear in the gay community, I can say this: only you can prevent fire accidents.
Shit.
So,
Jesus. Anyways, to go back to the reason why I was talking about it, yeah, there was something riding that wind, and like it was
there
almost,
was.
I don't want to say
So
the
did the
word for
wind
it,
break
but
into our
it's like,
car? Is that
nah, I don't know. But it was, it felt like something was just
something?
howling like a hollow spirit almost, right?
Mm,
And I did feel nervous for a second, but I had the fire with me, right?
right.
And
Mm-hmm.
if there's one
Ooh,
thing
very
that
good.
can really make you feel safe in the night, it's fucking having a fire, let
It
me tell you.
is. It really is. Because, like, being outside in true darkness, you know, like with no moon, like there's no moon or it's, you know, cloud cover or whatever, and it's night and it's true darkness, it is a very, very sobering sort of like experience. Because, like, in the city, it's very hard to experience true darkness. There's always light coming from somewhere. But to be out in a place to experience true darkness it's something. You know, like I was out camping and I just kind of like turned my flashlight off for a couple minutes just to like experience true darkness, and I was like, yeah, this is terrifying. It's legitimately terrifying, like if you really let it get into your psyche. Like if I was out here alone, no flight, like that's pretty fucking scary, you know?
There's shades to it though, right?
Mm,
Like even on a dark night, it's dark because you can't see the moon and there's not starlight. When
right.
you're out in the middle of fucking nowhere and your eyes have adjusted, starlight and moonlight is a crazy big amount. You can
Yes.
navigate by full moon at nighttime
Yes.
without fucking issue.
That's why
It's buck wild.
I noticed a lot of times with the LARP things that they were going to, I noticed they tried to schedule them around the times of the full moons because at night they
Mhm.
would run night events. And so you'd be fighting at night, but you kind of want the moon so they don't have to have as many lights out there, you know, like on the big field. So like if you have that big ass moonlight, you don't even need any extra lights to really see. So
But if it's overcast, you're fucked.
yes, that too. Well then, you know, I guess you get that's where weather magic comes in. See, everything just comes full circle.
Mhm.
But we are at like an hour and 20. So I wanted to Rue actually had to step aside to use the bathroom. And oh, they're back now. But yeah, I was thinking any sort of like concluding thoughts that we wanted to kind of wrap up on for this episode.
Oh man.
I know we've talked
There's
about
Burn
a
the
lot of different
empire
things.
down.
so many.
Get rid of capitalism, make billionaires pay. I got a lot of thoughts.
Oh man. Let me see. Not every big wind is there riding something in it.
Mm,
Sometimes there is. And sometimes it's best to just get out of its way.
mm.
Let me see, what else? Respect land spirits and other spirits like that for that reason. You share this world with them. You know, the world doesn't belong to you. What else?
They're bigger than you.
Practice fire safety. Whether you're doing it for rituals, whether it's with candles, a fire pit, a bonfire, doesn't matter. Make sure you're safe. If you're having a big fire pit, maybe have like, you know, the fire department close by. I don't know. Make sure it's legal and sanctioned, I guess.
Try not to get
Don't
arrested.
don't start forest fires because that's bad. It hurts people and
Yes.
animals.
Don't destroy the planet with your gender reveals. We don't fucking care.
Please end
Shit.
gender reveals. I hate them so much,
Yes,
and
and gender reveals.
they've rubbed me the wrong way for
Yeah.
years.
How can you know what gender the kid is if they haven't told you yet? Fuck.
But
Exactly.
what else? And don't be afraid to have experiences with the spirits you work with. that may not necessarily align with the folklore or the mythology. But also too, don't let yourself get so washed into that sort of sea of UPG where you sort of lose your groundedness.
Everything is about balance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your feet on the floor, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mhm.
have your experiences.
Absolutely.
I got a few
Peace
thoughts.
and tranquility.
So Jon Stewart is an American hero. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch him viciously shout down
Oh, yeah.
anti-trans people and capitalists on YouTube. It is the wholesome, righteous fury you didn't know that you needed in your day. Make the rich scared again, you know? Bring back guillotines.
Straight
Study
up,
magic
follow the
and learn
French.
how to curse your oppressors so they realize they're never safe should they treat us like we're disposable, because we don't need to know where they are, our spirits do.
Oh,
What?
I do have one more thing too. Also, it is
Yeah.
totally okay if you put a curse on your doorstep to curse package thieves.
Yes, it fucking
Damn
And if
is.
something
straight.
bad happens to them for stealing your shit, it's their fault.
Also, lock your cars.
Mhm.
Make sure your fucking
Right.
cars are locked.
Make sure your car's
Here's
locked.
my last
Boop boop your car.
closing crazy thought. If a fourth dimensional being would be something that could only move through reality at segmented intersections because we're only able to perceive certain portions of it, would that necessarily mean that people in separate bodies who work the same currents and archetypes are part of said being in like a segmented multi-layering of its organ system in third dimensional reality? I don't know. It's food for thought. It's a pretty deep schizo post, but it's definitely like something I wanted to throw out there for people to mull over.
So if
Because
you
I've
have
been thinking
opinions
about
about
that a lot.
that, join the Discord and let us know your thoughts on that shit, because we eat that shit up.
Fun
That just
fact,
made my head
if
hurt,
you
and I need weed just to make it make sense.
I can explain it to you in literal terms after the podcast and vulgar things I wouldn't say on the podcast. But point being, what I was also going to say is join the Discord, because even if you don't want to participate there, I started a channel today called Live Show Notes. So
Okay.
when we were talking about the two-dimensional beings
Mhm.
having shit stolen by the three-dimensional beings, I put it in there so that anybody who is watching along and curious as well could go find that. You
That's
don't
a great
even
idea
need
for
to
a channel.
interact with the Discord other than just having the Live Show Notes channel that you just click on.
Yeah, I
So if you
wonder
want to
if
see what the fuck we're talking about while we're doing it, we'll drop shit in there when we can.
yeah, I'm curious if we can make that live show notes channel like do you have to be a part? I guess you have to get through the verification stuff in order to see that channel.
Probably, yeah.
Could we make that to where you don't have to?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, so if we could figure that out, that'd be kind of cool. Just to have it like, at least if someone doesn't even have to like actually join the Discord necessarily and get through all the verification shit, they could just like see the live show
But
notes.
alt identifier will boot them though if they don't do the verification.
Yeah,
shit.
that's true. Yeah, sorry, I will say, like, for anyone joining the Discord, we do have we do have some safeguards in place. Thankfully to Fish for putting those in place, because really we just wanted to filter out any nonsense. So
And
there
if you
is
do go through the couple incredibly
there is a
easy
well-known
steps, you can chat with cool people like our newest follower, Chris Isella, who's talking in our chat right now.
Yes.
And also cool people like
And
Corvax
the
and
reason
Nate.
and the reason we set up those factors is for your own safety, actually.
Yeah,
There's
we
a
don't want assholes.
well-known stalker in the Chaos Magic community who will not
Yes.
be named,
Yeah.
who has stalked, doxed, and harassed numerous members of the community for years and years and years, like over a decade, to the point where people are wondering how this man has not been arrested for harassing to this.
It's pretty brutal.
It's for your protection that we have those things up, so that people who want to harass, stalk, or troll can simply be removed from the community
Before they
and
even start.
You don't have to have them fucking spew their vitriol at you.
Yep.
Yeah. So
And
I know
if
it
for
may
some
seem
reason,
like it's
yeah,
a
I
bit
know.
much.
Yeah, and I will say, like, if for some reason, like, you're having issues trying to get around the thing, like the prompts, if you're having issues with the prompts, just like message one of us on any social media, like just get in touch with us somehow and we'll help you through it. I know there's some people who just aren't familiar with Discord and how it works and stuff. So we could definitely do that. But I'm really happy that we are gaining some people in Discord. There has been some chatter about
Yay.
like wanting to set like weekly discussion topics. So that's something that I'm going to start
Ooh.
exploring. I think I'm going to look into like past
Yeah.
podcast episode topics and
That'd be
like
fun.
kind
We
of
should get
repurpose
community
those.
managers.
I would
We
love
should find
to.
some community managers.
I
Yeah.
would love
If you're
to.
listening to this and you think like, hey, I like this community a lot, I'd like to give something for it or give something to it, reach out to us because we're looking for people who'd be willing to just like interact with
Facilitate.
the
Yeah.
community on a weekly basis, facilitate conversations, you know, chat with us about like what the needs of the community are and that kind of shit. Just kind of like a moderator would be on any old Discord server because we're far too busy to make it all happen ourselves between like Jay doing Philly Pagan Pride, me doing my
Literally
hustle in the
everything.
film industry, and
Yeah.
like all the admin shit I do on DKMU, and like same Rue's doing all the same shit Scott or Jay is, and like Scott's got
Yeah.
school and
Cool.
therapy and like
It's a
all
lot.
your practices and stuff. Like we're busy people, you know.
Check out our latest project, the SAC quarterly newsletter, which will be available on
Yeah,
our
I'm
website at some
gonna.
point.
Yeah, so our South Street Circle, our little group, we put together a newsletter. We're trying to do a quarterly newsletter, so we have the first issue of that. So I'll be sharing that with the group pretty soon
Yes.
in Discord.
yeah.
I'm excited to read it.
Yes.
Also, we're getting T-shirts made up. The Blessed Fucking Bee.
Yeah, Katie is working
we?
on a design for the Blessed Fucking Bee. So once that's done, we'll have T-shirts with the
We
Blessed
saw the
Fucking
hat.
Bee.
Jim wore the hat over last week. The hat looks great.
Oh yeah, the Witches
The
Betwixt
mug is
hat,
great.
embroidered hat
Anybody
looks pretty
needs
good.
a reusable. Look at us plugging our merch.
Yeah, there is merch if you guys want merch stuff. We don't make the merch;
You know,
it's print
one
on
day-
demand. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. One day it'll reach that point where you'll run into somebody on the street wearing your merch and you're going to be like, fucking, what?
I can't wait for that day. It's gonna be a great day.
That'd be so cool.
Right?
I hope we're together.
Right. Alrighty, everybody.
I heard, yeah, I'll tell this story after. Go ahead. Finish her up.
I was just saying, we had like 5 viewers. I think that was like our max, like 5. I don't know if it hit 6 like it did the other time. I think 6 was our
Has to be
all-time.
5 people talking at the same time.
Oh, 5 people talking at the same time. But I just saw we did have 5 viewers, which was cool. So that's
Oh yes.
that was pretty cool.
I hate to ask this because I'm dumb, but what is like the general, like where is like general chat for everybody? Like where is that?
So the general chat, like in Discord, so it's the little rainbow
Yeah.
icon under the social category. It's a little
It
rainbow.
literally says general. Okay.
Yeah.
The word I used. Okay. I found it. Yay.
Scott's not a technomancer, if that hasn't
No.
been made painfully obvious.
I am, as my partner calls me, I am a relic. So
You know, just saying, we could make that relic into a cyborg and give you like some upgrades, you know, get you some amplifiers and shit, like stick some cyber tech in you, give grandma like a prosthetic hip that she can run again, you know.
artifice.
Right.
Turn me into a magician's artifice.
That sounds like fun.
We can do it. We'll make it happen. We'll slowly build you up with ritual structures and amps and
Magitech.
get you
Scott
onto
Butt.
the point where you can magically understand devices in an intuitive way.
Scott Butt. I like it. Alrighty, everyone. We will see you all in the next one. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Chris
Bye.
Starr, for jumping over from the Discord and hanging out in the Twitch chat. We appreciate that. Anyone who, so for us to hit our little milestones on Twitch, the more people we have chatting in there, the better. So yeah, if anyone just wants to come in and just say hi, that is pretty cool too. But we will see everyone in the next one. Hopefully, I think we'll be able to get together next week. Next Sunday? I think
Should
so.
be.
Yeah. All right. So we will see everyone next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Peace.